Welcome to week 4. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person to do the presentation today, but in some ways this is a blessing. The content we're covering today, obviously looking at essays and assessments and outlining your assessment task and what's expected, is really important. And so for people who couldn't make it today or are unwell, it allows you the opportunity to all get the same information. It also means that if you want to go back and look into this again, you can. I'll also upload a straight copy of the slides without narration because there's some links in them, and it also allows you to just go back and check the odd slide if you need to, rather than have to go through the whole video. So hopefully that's helpful for you. I will do my best to cover everything I can, but I'm going to be opening a subject discussion thread on assessment, so you can ask any questions that I didn't cover. And I promise if I have a coughing fit throughout any of the video, I will stop and re-record it for you. So let's get going and see how we go. Look at what your assessments entail, how to submit them, how to approach a structured essay, how to better prepare yourself for essay exams, because while in this essay you'll be preparing it at home, you may in the future have exams where you need to do essays under time pressure, and specifically for the medical student selection exams. And one way of doing that is actually with writing practice. And so we've provided an optional writing task that actually opens tonight. You don't have to do it if you don't want to, but if you want to do it, it's an opportunity to do a bit of writing under pressure. So I think one of the important questions is, how does MEDI128 actually help you develop skills? You remember in our first workshop, we talked about how important the humanities are, not just in making you a better human, but also in making you a better health professional and a better medical student, and also a better medical school applicant. So how does MEDI128 help that? Let's have a look. Already become clear to you in our in-class discussions and the case studies we've talked through about how we're starting to get you to think in that way. We've been practicing how to consider different perspectives, various viewpoints. We've talked about some of the evidence and history, the values and morals and cultural and religious influences on human behaviour, on decision making, and on some of the intricacies you see, particularly in patient-doctor relationships and societal values. We've had a bit of practice already in discussing ideas and justifying opinions and listening to other people. We've talked about making an argument and a counter-argument. I've asked for your opinions, but I've also asked you to give opinions based on where you were sitting in the room, not necessarily based on what you thought. And we've practiced considering both sides of a situation and perhaps finding a compromise position. All of these skills, and they are skills, are important for interviews. All of these skills are important for selection, but they're just important for you being a better person and a better clinician in the future. Drives learning. So we could just ask you this and practice this, but unless we actually have some assessment to back it up, to check that you've learned these skills, it's probably meaningless. If you look at the subject learning outcomes for MEDI128, they describe critically reviewing and analysing and interpreting information regarding the ethical, social and professional issues in health and healthcare practice. And they talk about developing an argument and communicating that perspective clearly and coherently based on evidence. So we've designed 2 assessments that hopefully help you do that. So in week 7, your first one that's due is your individual essay, and it's a 1,000-word essay to be submitted to e-learning. The second part is a group presentation, and this is a video submission, a maximum 10 minutes to be provided to e-learning as well. Now, the video assignment is actually probably the bigger of the 2. It's worth more, it's worth 30%, but it also is probably going to take more work. But it's a group presentation, so that work is spread between 4 or 5 of you. Health is a team sport, as I've mentioned earlier, and so having that professional ability to work in a team and to spread work and work fairly in a team is an important skill as well. So all of this helps us to practice those future skills for you. Video presentation, as I said, looks at teamwork and professionalism. We will also be assessing with some peer assessment. We'll talk about that in a moment. And you'll be sharing a mark based on the quality of what you prepare. The individual essay assignment allows us to assess your individual work and your ability to write down and to clarify ideas, and also all those other skills about critical analysis and referencing and appropriate writing. So when it comes to the video presentation, it needs to be submitted by 5 p.m. on Monday the 24th of September. Now, I've written down submit all components by 5 p.m. That is because there is more than just the video file, and I'll talk about what the other components are later. It's a weighting of 30%. The time limit on your video is it can be no less than 5 minutes and no more than 10. Doesn't sound like a lot, but if you've ever done any work with video, that's actually quite a lot of work to get that much done. Marks associated with these. In week 13 of semester, on our very last day, we will be holding the MEDI128 Academy Awards. This will be the 3rd annual MEDI128 Academy Awards. And as well as all the marks you will get for your groups, a few of the best videos will be chosen and showed at our MEDI128 Film Festival, and we'll be giving out Oscars in various categories. Now, the cohorts before you have obviously produced this assignment with no real guidance from the years above. I've decided to be kind to you guys, and for inspiration, I've just chosen some small snippets from some of our prize winners from the previous years, just to get your creative juices flowing. Now, I haven't shown you their entire videos, don't want to give away all their secrets, but just for ideas. I'm going to start by showing you just a minute and a half or so from the best film of 2016, which was about freedom. One of my favourite films, actually. This one was incredibly emotive, and students used a really impressive collection from their script writing, their passion to camera, their use of snippets of film and current affairs, their use of music. It was a very powerful film. So here's a little bit to get you started.
If people must strive to take freedom, is it truly freedom?
Then I suggest you go back where you came from.
It must be frustrating that you still cannot legally marry here in your own country.
Identify the word freedom with its utopian, overused dictionary definition, the right to act, speak, or think as one wants, without being restricted. This also incorporates the state of not being imprisoned or enslaved. However, society's understanding of freedom doesn't come from a dictionary, it comes from their human experience.
Let's think about your video. When you get to your video, you have the following prompt to guide you. Consider the following topic and quotes allocated to your group and develop a video piece in response to the topic. You can use one or more of the quotes to anchor your topic. Your assignment will be judged on the quality of your response to the theme, how well you organise and present your point of view, and how effectively you express yourself. Ensure you clearly identify which quotes you are referring to in your video assignment. Now, I gave you until week 3 to choose a group, and probably 3/4 of you did. A group of people didn't choose groups, either because they didn't get around to it or because they really didn't mind where they were. So I have spread you throughout the groups as well, so everybody now has a home. The groups I'll be putting up as well tonight in a separate document, but I'm just going to move quickly through those slides so that you can see what your group is. The other thing, more importantly, I suppose, is I have randomly allocated topics. So you not only have a group now, you also have a topic. So have a little look and see what your topic is. You will notice the topics are very general, they're quite vague, and that allows you a lot of freedom to explore around that topic and a lot of creativity about what you choose to say about that topic. The other thing is they're the kind of general topics that often appear in things like GAMSAT or UMAT as writing pieces. So let's get going and look at what the groups are. All right. Have you all found yourselves? Hopefully everyone is there. If by any horrible reason I've missed anyone, please email me urgently. But I think I've got everyone in. So now you know your topics, what to do. If you go into the assessment support materials folder, you will find a list that says group video topics and quotes. It's a PDF. Now, in there are a list of all the topics. So if we look at, say, I've just chosen topic 1, society, and that's what group K are doing, they've just discovered, you'll find next that are 5 quotes. So the quotes for society are listed here, but there's a list like this for every single topic. Now, what you need to do then as a group is decide, how am I going to use those quotes to drive a topic, to drive a video? You can use just one of those quotes. You can use all of those quotes. You can use 2 or 3 quotes that might talk about the same thing or that might contradict each other. It's completely up to you. Please make it clear which quote you're using. Either use the quote verbally in the video, explain it to us in some way so we know what you're relating it to. It's one of the pet hates when we're marking both the essays and the videos is that we can't figure out what you're talking about. So make it clear. But what the quote allows you to do is it gives you some direction on the way you want to move that video. As a group, you need to make a decision which one you're going to do, and as a group, you need to then decide how you want to approach that video. Okay, so now that you know your topic, go find out what the quotes are, and there's your place to start. Okay. Let's talk about more creative ideas though of how do you actually make this into a video. And I think this is where I want to give you a bit of help from your classmates in the years above to show you some of the things that you can do. I mean, you can do anything you want, and please don't be limited or feel that you must copy any of the things I'm showing you. If you've got a better idea, then show it to us. I've obviously received 40 videos in the last 2 years from the 2 cohorts. I've just picked a few snippets to show you examples of how people approach things differently. So let's have a look at some of the things you can do. One of the simplest things that people can use is spoken dialogue. If you're a good public speaker and you're confident in front of a camera, you can certainly do that. In this video, you can actually see Justin and Alicia that you saw in the Best Film of 2016, who were doing spoken dialogue. Both really confident speakers, and it worked quite well. But certainly, it's not everybody's strength. But if it is your strength and it is something you feel comfortable with, then it's a good option. People can also ham it up too, so it doesn't have to be serious. And some people have much more theatrical strengths than others. I'm going to show you one of the videos from 2017 that ended up, it was a great video, ended up being awarded Best Special Effects for a whole lot of things. But I'm going to show you just a snippet which involves Aaron and Lillian doing some amazing stuff. And it's a good example of another way to do spoken to camera dialogue as part of a story. So let's have a look and see what they did.
Now across to Jonathan Jacobs, where something quite remarkable is happening.
Thanks, Janine. We're here today in a car park where the question of morality, a set of logical rules that govern our decisions, or empathetical expressions influenced by our social or cultural context will be answered. Here, Grace is driving a car with two paths in front of her. The current set on 3 innocent people, the other 1 innocent person. Grace must now decide, does one pull the lever, saving 3 and killing 1, or leave the trolley on its current path? Let's watch. Seems to be an easy choice here, Janine. Numerical logic seems to win over Grace and... Oh! Yes! She pulls the lever. Well done, Grace.
So I hope you enjoyed that as much as I do. It was actually a really interesting video for a whole lot of different reasons. It doesn't have to be serious. Some of the videos are serious, some of the videos are incredibly emotive, but some of them are funny. And we've had a number of quite hilarious ones, sometimes because of in-jokes, sometimes just because they were funny. Sometimes I'm not quite sure that they intended to be funny, but they turned out that way, which was pretty good. So comedy is always useful. If you're good at comedy, comedy can be great. The video that I'm going to show you next, just a snippet of again, was the Best Comedy of 2017 and was a video about politics. So it was actually quite fascinating. This video is a part of its own time frame. So interestingly, the very first video you can see mentioned same-sex marriage, and obviously that's now been resolved, but that was an issue in 2016. This video it was coming up to the US presidential elections. So Donald Trump and the presidential elections actually played a part in this one. So have a little look and see what this team came up with. great. And after Nelson Mandela did a good job and Julia Gillard did a good job, and look, I'll be honest, Donald Trump was hilarious, I'm very proud to say at the end the student did vote for Lyndall and Sal for president. So, you know, they made their decisions well. We were impressed. We were impressed. Don't forget that there's 5 of you, and you can use the group in various different ways. And in a number of videos, the group have been used as a panel. The group have been used as props to act out various scenarios. The group have been used as listing conversations, and it all depends on what your group want to do and how you want to do it. So one of the ones that I found was great, and also watch this video to see how they've made their quotes used and quite clear, was the best news video of 2017, best news and current affairs, and this was MEDI128 Q&A. If you haven't seen an episode of Q&A, it probably won't be as appealing to you. Can I say, if you haven't seen an episode of Q&A, you need to start watching it now, because this comes back to how do you be a good human, understand what's going on in the world. Q&A should be something you watch. But have a look and see how these guys did the use of their whole group.
Good evening and welcome to Q&A. Many people spend their lives considering the questions about the meaning of life and God. Well, tonight, in less than an hour and with a panel of experts, we will unravel once and for all of these mysteries. Our guests are British novelist, poet and theologian C.S. Lewis, English author and, to use his own words, a radical atheist, Douglas Adams, and American stand-up comedian, author and actor George Carlin. Adams, you describe yourself as a radical atheist. Can you explain to the audience and the panel what you mean by this?
Yes, I use the term radical to emphasise how passionate and firmly set I am in atheism. People often ask me, not an agnostic, but in my opinion, agnosticism is an excuse to not have to think too much.
Wow, interesting opinion. And another interesting opinion that you have is in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Isn't it enough to say that a garden is beautiful without having to believe that there are fairies at the bottom of it too?
I truly believe that everyone is distracting themselves with the intangible in life. We are missing out on all the beauty in the world by chasing after things that don't exist. Religion has been the cause of numerous wars, and it doesn't even have a shred of evidence behind it. I don't understand why religion is so popular when it doesn't provide the testable and measurable nature of maths, science, and history.
Showed you what Douglas Adams had to say. You can understand that the other side of the argument went. That video was quite sophisticated because not only did they have the whole Q&A situation, they had the Twitter feed along the bottom, they even had ad breaks with completely created commercials for various products. It was a masterpiece. But all of the videos I've showed you so far involve people getting their faces in front of camera. And that's great if you're confident and you want to do that. But that's not everybody's favourite thing. So don't feel that you have to be in front of the camera either as one person in your group. You'll notice in the Q&A there was 4 to camera. Someone was behind the camera doing that amazing filming. But the other thing is, for some videos there was no student in front of the camera, and that's okay too. Animation's been used heavily across the last 2 years in some of our best videos, both with animation software, or one cohort had somebody who was just a really, really good whiteboard drawing person who was filmed creating graphics. So don't forget that you've got all of this option available to you too if this better medium is better for you. So lots and lots of options. This time I'm going to show you the best animation of 2016, which was a video about knowledge and how they used animation to get the message across. It's really quite impressive.
Knowledge. We've all heard of it. It's all around us. But what actually is it? Have you ever wondered what it means to know something? These seemingly simple questions lie at the heart of philosophy's oldest debates, having occupied thinkers from Plato to Russell and other contemporary academics for thousands of years. There are many different perspectives of the true meaning of knowledge. In fact, Googling the definition of knowledge will give you a whopping 1,060,000,000 search results in around the time it takes a person to blink. However, the most generalised definition of knowledge, according to the Oxford Dictionary, is the facts, information and skills acquired through experience or education, the theoretical or practical understanding of a subject. The gaining of knowledge involves complex cognitive processes of perception, communication, reasoning and understanding. This process incorporates our sense perception, reason, emotion, faith, imagination, education, intuition, memory, and language. Knowledge is all around us. From the invention of the wheel, to the light bulb, to the new iPhone 7 that you're eagerly awaiting to get your hands on, it's clear that knowledge is a driving force to the growth and evolution of our world. Not only this, knowledge also plays a fundamental role in all aspects and stages of our individual lives, shaping every characteristic of who we are, our morals, attitudes, perspectives, and choices. Now that we have skimmed the surface, it is time to delve deeper and explore the complexities of knowledge.
Love that. I'm still not quite sure what software they used for that, but it was quite effective to have that clear screen. It was very engaging. Now, another thing that's often quite popular is the old vox pop. If you haven't heard that term before, vox populi is Latin and means voice of the people, and it's where you go out on the street and interview people. This has been done by a couple of videos and it actually can be quite effective. You've got to be careful with your topic. You've got to think about who you interview, and you need to make sure that they're succinct and compelling, but they can be very effective. And so over several videos, this has been done quite well. The other things, again, without being face to camera, are the use of voiceovers and narration, the use of popular video. And I think there's a whole lot of things that you can do. The last video snippet I want to show you is actually from the best film of 2017, which was about society. These guys used so many different methods together to make a very, very slick and well-produced video. They had vox pop through the video, they had a number of different slides and content, they had sound and music and animation, and look, anyone who can get Game of Thrones in context in a video and make it make sense impresses me. But anyway, let's see what you think. This is again just a short snippet to show you the quality of this film from last year.
Society's behavior is determined by its innate natural qualities, but is also influenced by external artificial concepts. To what extent is modern society impacted by natural humanity and artificial notions of civilization?
And the snows fall and the white winds blow. The lone wolf dies, but the pack survives.
As individuals, our thoughts and actions are strongly, though subconsciously, influenced by the way in which our peers behave and conduct themselves. This sort of pack mentality, in which society is able to sway our individual behaviour, has a strong instinctual basis, developed as a result of the need of our species' ancestors to align their thoughts with one another in order to ensure the herd's overall survival. Even within a modern-day setting, where this alignment of thought is no longer the difference between life and death, we see individuals being profoundly influenced by the actions of others. And it is not just the mundane and everyday behaviour being influenced, such as our clothing, food and language choices. It is even possible to see that our desire to fit in impacts the choices we make about the big stuff, such as religion, ethics and morals. The very way we define ourselves as individuals is being affected by this idea of herd mentality.
Yes, because it reduces the risk of becoming a social outcast.
So yes, because it's scary to go out on your own.
So yes, it's safer to follow the crowd because less people will target you for your differences.
Yes, because you can diffuse responsibility when you're in groups.
So hopefully you got a bit of inspiration from those videos, giving you some ideas of where to go. And I'm sure you're going to think up your own new and fantastic ideas for this year. So, and I also hope it's going to be fun. The students last year did really enjoy it, and so did the students before. So it's certainly going to be a change from everything else you're doing, and gives you a chance to bring out your creativity. You'll be marked a total of 30 marks, and they come in 3 components. So there'll be 20 marks based on the overall content of the group assignment. We will give you a mark out of 20, and I'll explain to you the marking rubric in a moment. And all of you in the group, all 4 or 5 of you, will get the same mark out of those 20 marks. There'll be 5 marks on top of that that are based on your individual role. So you'll tell us who did what. And so if you were the cameraman, there'll be 5 marks based on the quality of your filming. If you were the editor, or if you were the person in front of the camera, whatever it is, there'll be 5 marks based on the quality of the bit that you did. And then finally, there'll be 5 marks based on the peer assessment of your colleagues and what they thought of you. At those 3 ways is that we're assessing 3 different things. Obviously, the 20 marks you share is based on the content and your knowledge and understanding of the content. The 5 marks based on your individual role are about the process and your individual quality of putting in the process. And the final 5 marks are about assessing your professionalism as a team member. And these are all important skills and important measures of your performance overall. So that way there are marks based on your contribution and there are marks based on your colleagues, which shows your professionalism towards your colleagues in a group environment. Now, as for the submission, the videos we discovered are too big to upload to Moodle. No matter which video file you use, they end up being too big. So what we've done is I've set up OneDrive folders for each group. Now, I started doing the invitations last night. I'll be finishing them off tonight. So there'll be more videos to come, more emails to come, but you'll get an email link to the OneDrive folder. If by the end of the weekend you haven't got one, please email me because you've each got a OneDrive folder. Now, the OneDrive folders can be accessed by your normal UOW mail address. And what it means is that you've got access to that folder and only you guys plus Sal and I can see what's in that folder. It means that if you need a shared space to save things while you're working, by all means use that as your shared space. If you want to, you can park things in there, you can put edits in there. We won't be looking at it until submission date. There is a folder inside that folder called Completed Assignment, and by 5 p.m. on Monday the 24th, the video file that's inside that folder will be the one we will be marking. Okay, so that's how you submit it. It needs to be inside that folder by September the 24th, but you can use that folder for anything you want before and after then. Now, if you're using sources in your video, and I'm sure you will be, they need to be referenced using Harvard referencing in an additional Word document. So just write me a Word document with the references you used, so citing the videos you accessed, any resources, any commercial video, and any of the reading resources you used, and pop that reference list in there as well. There is a form, I mentioned the group roles, and I'll talk about that in a moment. There is a form that you need to submit, and there's no strict form for this, just a Word document telling us what everybody did. So basically, like you might put in the credits of a movie, what everybody did, that's got a Turnitin box already up for you. And finally, your peer assessment form has a Turnitin box as well. So the video file, the references list, and the group roles form, I only need 1 per group. But the peer assessment form, I need 1 per individual student. Okay? So hopefully that's all clear. So as far as the individual roles are concerned, we just need to know what each of you contributed to the video. Now, in some videos it's obvious because everybody's in front of the camera, but if the video is animated or narrated, I can't see what components each person did. So let us know. And it may be that you took multiple roles, it may be that multiple people shared multiple roles, but let me know at the end of the video who did what, so that we can actually judge the quality of their individual contribution as well. Just stick that on a Word document. It doesn't have to be in any particular format as long as it's clear. And then finally, there's a peer assessment form. So the peer assessment form is designed to allow your group members to judge the professionalism with which you worked as a team member. So giving peer assessment and giving feedback to others is actually a complex and advanced skill. And this is something that we expect to see in future medical students. So you need to answer the following question about your group members and provide feedback. This will be given anonymously to the person for their own learning and development. So what you need to do is, you'll see on the form, you put your own name at the top and the name of your group members. And then for each group member, you need to give them a judgment about whether they contributed to the planning and implementation consistently, reliably and positively, always, mostly, sometimes, rarely or never. And then some feedback below. Now, you do that for everybody in your group. What will happen is if you're in, say, a group of 5, we will add together the 5 scores and average them. If you're in a group of 4, we'll do the same thing. So your score will be the average of the scores given to you by your other 3 or 4 group members. If you do not provide a peer assessment form, you will get 0. The rest of your group members won't be disadvantaged by your lack of score, but you will be. Because again, if you don't provide an assessment, that shows your lack of professionalism and you get 0 for that component of those 5 marks. Okay? So take this bit seriously, because we will certainly be taking it seriously. And it's an opportunity for you to reflect on your own professionalism and your own contribution, and to help your colleagues develop as group members. The final thing is to consider the actual rubric by which we mark the essay. So the 20 marks, 4 marks each, are for the 5 subheadings you see above. So it's all about the quality of the response, the organisation of the video, the presentation, looking at creativity, and the relevance to the topic, showing that you've thought about it, that you have understanding of the meaning and you've critically analysed material, that it's easy for us to follow, that it's compelling or entertaining, and that it's relevant. The final 5 marks about the individual contribution are just the quality of the part that you did, which we've discussed previously. And all of this content is available in the assignment outline. So with that covered, let's move on to the essay, and we'll talk a little bit about the essay requirement, which is due sooner, but hopefully won't be quite as intense. So the essay question is as follows. Consider the following quotes and develop a piece of writing in response to one or more of them. Your writing will be judged on the quality of your response to the theme, how well you organise and present your point of view, and how effectively you express yourself. Ensure you clearly identify which quotes you are referring to at the beginning of your essay. Again, as I mentioned in the video, ensuring you identify which quote you're referring to is very important. And I'd recommend you put that quote at the top of your essay along with your name and student number, because again, it's very difficult to mark. Sometimes it doesn't get mentioned at all, which can really impact on your marks. So the quote is your response. You will see that the quotes have a bit of a theme to them, and the theme relates to the things we've been talking about. So while the video assignment is far more broad, the essay question relates specifically to the content we've been talking about in class. Let's go through the quotes. Quote number 1. Nothing that you do in science is guaranteed to result in benefits for mankind. Any discovery, I believe, is morally neutral, and it can be turned either to constructive ends or destructive ends. A moral principle in genetic testing is that it should always be done with the consent of the individual. No one wants someone snooping into his DNA. In the real world, 90% of the money spent on medical research is focused on conditions that are responsible for just 10% of the deaths and disability caused by diseases globally. Dogs do not have many advantages over people, but one of them is extremely important. Euthanasia is not forbidden in their case. Animals at least have the right to a merciful death. All knowledge attains its ethical value and its human significance only by the human sense with which it is employed. Only a good man can be a great physician. And finally, doctors are men who prescribe medicines of which they know little to cure diseases of which they know less in human beings of whom they know nothing. So there's a controversial group of quotes there. You can choose one, you can choose more, whatever you like. But basically you need to form an argument around one or more of those quotes, and that will be the basis of your essay. You need to submit this by Monday the 3rd of September at 5 p.m. It has a 10% weighting, and it's an electronic submission via Turnitin link, which is already there in your Moodle page. Now, please submit it in a Word document only, 12 font, and 1.5 or 2 space just makes it easy to read. Now, the word limit is 1,000 words plus or minus 10%. That doesn't include your reference list or citations, and the sources must be appropriately referenced using Harvard referencing. So this is a formal academic essay. I'm assuming that you've had to do some in first semester, but we know that for some of you this will be a strength, depending on your HSC background, and for some of you it may not be a strength. So this is a good opportunity to improve your skill set in this area. So we will talk a little bit more about that. If you're approaching an academic essay like this, there are a few things that you need to consider. Number one, obviously, is start early. These things take longer than you think. 1,000 words isn't really very much, but actually that's part of the challenge. The longer the essay, often the easier it is because you can waffle. With 1,000 words and topics as meaty as this, you do not have time to waffle. You need to keep this succinct, and the quality of your writing will be important. First, you need to read the question. So take a moment to really consider the quote and the theme. Look for its deeper meaning and broad applications, and don't just take it at face value. Think about what each of those quotes mean and think about which one really calls out to you. Once you've thought about which topic you think is important or which quote, you need to be reading broadly to develop and establish your own position in relation to the question. So whichever one of those you've chosen, you need to be finding out who the person was that said it, to see what other people have said about what they said or what other people have said in general. You want to read widely and think critically and add up the weight of evidence to help you determine what your viewpoint will be. Does this quote resonate with you because you agree with it or because you disagree strongly with it? And sometimes the evidence may not conclusively support one viewpoint or the other, but you need to draw together to make an argument based on one view. You need to take a position. So before you begin to write, you need to kind of articulate this position. Right? Write 1 to 2 sentences to yourself about what you think, that you agree or disagree, what you think your position is going to be, and that'll help keep your mind focused. It'll form the basis of your thesis statement, which you'll include in the introduction, which is that you agree or disagree with this person, that they're right or that they're partially right or that they're on the right track or completely off base. And that will help you get started. And of course, with any essay, you need to plan. Because an essay needs to have a central point of view. You need to be convincing the reader about something. So every point in your essay will contribute to this multifaceted argument, but with a central point of view that you're trying to get across. So as an essay writer, you can and should include arguments made by the other side, because your reader is going to say yes, but as they're reading. If you say, I agree with this, or I believe this, and your essay reader says yes, but, you need to anticipate what those yes, buts are, and actually include the arguments to say, critics have said this, or opponents have said that, but this is not strong for. So you actually describe why they are invalid, or why they fail to disprove your central argument. Remember that you are writing this from third person, so it's not a I believe, it's a this is the truth. But your conclusion at the end should tie the arguments together, but give a final parting shot for why you're right. Overall, your plan needs to have a thesis, which is the good point, your point of view, which is made and supported with examples. It needs an antithesis, which is the opposing good point made and supported with examples. And then the synthesis, which draws them together and basically goes back to explain why the thesis you have made is correct. So the thesis, if I was writing an essay about, I'm trying to think what I'm going to talk about greyhound dogs, seeing my greyhounders asleep on the floor, I might be making a thesis to say that greyhounds are good pets and should be pets rather than racing dogs. And I could put in an antithesis from all sorts of racing trainers about why, you know, they're good race dogs and they shouldn't be pets and they should be raced. But then I can bring in the evidence about the cruelty to greyhound racing dogs and finalise it by saying, while these 2 points are valid, cruelty trumps all, and the prevention of cruelty is more important than money made from racing industry, therefore greyhounds should be pets. A silly example I just made up, but it explains how you might structure an essay. What your structure is going to be, you need to make sure you plan. One of the problems people have is kind of writing randomly, but often the planning is actually quite good to take place on paper. You can do this on computer as well, but you want to actually put rough headings for your introduction, main argument, counter arguments and conclusion. And you need to add points to each section in whichever order they come into your head. If the conclusion's clear, get that down first. Do it quickly. Basically do a brain dump on a piece of paper. Now, whether you're doing this in an exam situation, obviously you do the same thing and do it very quickly. But even if you're doing this in a written situation, it's a great first step to kind of brain dump. And it doesn't matter if you haven't done a lot of reading yet. You have gut feeling about this. You obviously have some background, even just from what we've talked about so far, that will allow you to at least start that. Your argument may change the more you read. It should change the more you read. But this will get you started. One of the biggest problems with essay writing is analysis paralysis. You spend so much time reading and thinking that you don't know where the hell to start. You need to just start with what you have and then fill in the gaps later. As mentioned before, an essay structure needs an introduction, a body, a conclusion, and of course the references. The introduction gives us a general statement about the topic. In your situation, it needs to include the quote. It has the thesis statement that I mentioned, which is and this is the statement I'm going to make. This is the proposed argument I am speaking for. And it can briefly summarise, maybe in a sentence or so, what some of the topics and arguments are going to be. In the body of the essay, you'll explain your main argument. You'll do the counter arguments and then you'll draw it all together. And this is in your main body. Now in the conclusion, this is to restate your main argument and explain why you've made the point that you've made. It should reiterate the most important evidence. This is not where you bring in new information or new ideas. It may discuss what the significance is, what the implications are. It may discuss where future things need to go. It may discuss some limitations where you admit that while your thesis is correct, there isn't all the evidence there or something along those lines. But this is basically the final, and let me explain to you why I'm right. Does that make sense? They keep your arguments simple and easy to understand. One of the biggest traps that we find marking these is long and convoluted sentences that sometimes it's very hard to follow what you're talking about. Keep it simple. You can write well and write compellingly and write in formal academic language without using long sentences. Use lots of simple individual points for your argument. It makes it easier to read. Make your points concisely and confidently, sound like you know what you're talking about. Obviously, grammar, terminology, spelling and style are important. Quote evidence and use that well when you need to. Sound like you actually care. Use up-to-date examples. Use it from mainstream media. Of course, you need to use academic sources, but you can use a range of materials in this. but just make sure you reference them properly. And finally, you need to be critical of your own work. Does it make sense? Are there errors? Remember that when you've worked on something for some time, you will miss your own mistakes because you're reading what you think should be there. I find reading my work out loud is really effective to find mistakes. You can actually ask the computer to do it for you, which is interesting. You get Word to do a narration, it'll read it, and that's also how you find your mistakes. Even better, get somebody else to read it who's going to be critical. 1,000 words is a tricky word limit because you don't have time to waffle. This is going to need to be quite tight to do well. You'll find is actually quite similar to that of the video essay. We're looking at the quality of the response, the organisation, how easy it is for us to follow your line of reasoning. We're looking for the presentation, simple, does it make sense, has it been well written, do the sentences make sense and the accuracy, and of course the relevance of the quote. And so making sure that it relates to it. And there will be 20 marks associated to those 5 categories, and the final mark is worth 10%. So I do want to talk about how you practice and prepare and improve your writing skills in general, because this is something that you're going to need to do a lot in the future, whether you go into medicine or into any other fields. And while you're focusing mostly in your degree on the sciences, this is another skill you need to develop. If you are sitting the GAMSAT exam in the future, for example, for entrance to medicine, for many scientists, the section 1 and 2, the social and ethical and essay writing sections can be a struggle. I'm proud to say, having looked at your final year colleagues in pre-med, they have done very well in section 1 and 2 this year, particularly in section 2, which I hope is to do with having to practice essay writing for us in MEDI128. So this stuff matters, but overall this is a skill that you need to have for your future, and for your future if you're going to go into medicine. Important things is you guys need to be reading. You need to be reading widely, and you need to be reading daily. Now, you don't want to start doing this 6 weeks before GAMSAT. You need to do it now. So to become a more educated human being and a better health professional, you need to have a wide reading, not just your textbooks. So obviously a fun place to start is reading for leisure, because reading fiction and reading for fun still makes you a more educated human being. You know, there are so many fundamental classics that raise questions about humanity. If you haven't read The Handmaid's Tale yet, then you absolutely should. You know, if you haven't read 1984, then you absolutely should. Whether it be Game of Thrones or, you know, any other important fiction work that's around at the moment, they make you think, they make you reflect, and they make you reflect on our current society. But I also mean read everything. Read newspapers and current affairs, watch documentaries, read philosophy, read poetry, seek out other people's opinions, because this is what helps you think about your own and either form one or challenge your own. There's a whole list of things here to read, and I'll put these slides up as a PDF document in the folder so that you actually can look at these slides yourself and click on the links. So things like The Guardian, The Conversation, The New Yorker are all newspaper articles, but they're not quite as mainstream as normal. The Conversation is Australian, and the interesting thing about The Conversation is that it is newspaper style, but it's written by academics, so the evidence is usually quite strong. The Arts and Letters and Huffington Post often have really interesting opinion pieces, as does Spiked Online. Now, The Meaning of Things, Applying Philosophy to Life and Humanity, these are books that have been written and are really interesting, thinking about the fundamentals of who and why we are. Very effective to broaden your mind, same as poets.org. And of course, the good old TED Talks. If you've got 20 minutes to spare and you're sick of reading, watch a TED Talk. Some of them are great, some of them are controversial, some of them are compelling, some of them are a bit wacky, but they're always a good use of time. Burke said that to read without reflecting is like eating without digesting, and I think that's really important. Don't just read. You need to consider what you've read. Do you agree? How does that make you feel? How does it fit with what you previously knew? And if you're going to explain it to somebody else, how would you do that? What's your take-home message from that? If you're not asking yourself those questions, then you're probably not learning from the reading that you're doing. So consider all of those things. Even more importantly, you want to actually talk to people about your reading. So talk about your opinions about your reading or about anything else with your friends and family, basically with anyone who'll listen. Now, you're a group of students who are all in a similar situation, hoping to progress and go into the health professions. One of the most beautiful things about being a university student is being able to sit down between lectures with other bright, learned people, drink coffee and solve the problems of the world. If you're not sitting and discussing the problems of the world, it's time that you started. So get together and practice sharing ideas. Do it online, do it face-to-face. I've been trying to get you guys to engage on the subject in the forum. Hasn't quite happened yet. A couple of people have contributed, thank you. But this is the kind of opportunity to share your ideas, whether you agree, whether you disagree. The kind of conversations we have in class need to be conversations you're having every day to polish your ability to articulate and express opinions and to listen and understand other people's. Writing is like any other skill. The more you write, the better you'll get. And writing an argument in 30 minutes for a selection test or for any exam is something that you practice. So sitting down with a timer, a pen and paper and a topic on anything is the best way to get better, especially if you can get someone else to critique it for you. Again, if you're considering writing essays for GAMSAT, you shouldn't be doing this 3 weeks before the GAMSAT exam. You need to do it early. If you're going to practice writing in general, use online forums, you can use university resources, you can use your friends and classmates. There's a forum that you may not have found yet called Paging Doctor. Now, we are not formally associated with Paging Doctor. This is just a student forum, but it's a very, very interesting student forum full of students who are interested in applying to medicine. Now, they can be a little neurotic and hysterical, I think I need to warn you. But if you are coming up to GAMSAT exams or interviews, there are people there who are in the same boat as you who are happy to read and critique your essays. Now, remember, they're in the same boat as you. They're not experts, but it can help to have another point of view. If you are struggling with your writing, then Learning Development are there to help you. And the Learning Co-op is very effective. And their links are all on the student intranet. And you can find them on the SOLS page. But the other thing is I've put some resources from Learning Development on your Moodle page to help you. Now, I mentioned ways to practice writing, and one way to do that is with our writing practice task. Now, the writing practice task is live now and will be live for 2 weeks. You don't have to do it. Absolutely not compulsory. It's just an opportunity if you wanted to practice a 30-minute writing exercise over the next 2 weeks to get that done. Sal and I will be reviewing them. We won't be marking them as such because there isn't a marking rubric for this paper. It's obviously not going to be referenced. It's your thoughts on paper in 30 minutes. But we will be giving you feedback on the quality of your writing and hopefully helping you do better at your writing. As I said, not compulsory. If you're not interested, don't do it. But anybody who wants to practice a little bit more writing, here's an opportunity for you. The exercise is an online timed 30 minutes essay, and in the style that you're now getting used to, it has a series of quotes for you, which you can choose from and write against. We will be providing written feedback to that, and it's completely optional. Do it if you want, don't do it if you don't. In the writing task has been designed to match that in the medical student selection tests, so it's GAMSAT timing. Of course, it's not a GAMSAT mock essay, we don't do that, but it's that kind of style. The important thing is with 30 minutes, it's not a lot of time. You need to be planning well before you start writing. I would suggest that you need to be using a significant amount of that time to plan. You're much better to plan well and write less than to not plan and to write stuff that doesn't make sense. So it's a good way to actually work on your timing of how much time you can get away with for planning. So that's basically the content of what I wanted to cover today. From here, there's a few things I'm going to do. I will be, as I mentioned, uploading the PDF of these slides so that you can go back and just look at the individual content of them if you need to, and also those links in the second half. I'll be reminding you, please go and look in the assessment folder to see all of the assessment outlines, the group topics, the peer assessment forms, etc. And of course, all the Moodle links are up for you. There are 2 videos that I have loaded for you on Moodle, one on essay structure and one filmed by a British academic who is absolutely hilarious. I think he reminds me of one of the teachers out of Harry Potter. His content's great, but he is absolutely hilarious. Anyway, they are both there for you to help you improve your essay writing. And of course, I'm going to set up a subject outline, in the subject folder of the thread of the forum. I'll get words out in a minute. I will set up a thread to talk about assessment. So if you have any assessment questions, dump it in there so I can see it and answer you. Hopefully I've covered everything you need to know. From here, get together with your groups and get filming. I'm going to leave the final farewell on this video to the Morality 2017 video team because they did such a nice job of their bye-bye. I'm going to let them say bye-bye. Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend. Find me any questions if I've forgotten anything. Take care.
And that's all the time we have, so it's time to say goodbye, Aaron. Today we learnt how morality is predominantly subjective, and it's time to say goodbye, Renee. We also learnt that morality is both empathetic and logical. And goodbye to you too, Lillian. And we also learnt that empathy is mostly intrinsic, as we say goodbye, Grace. We've had so much fun, but now it's time to say goodbye, India. See you next time, everyone.